Welcome back, and thanks for tuning in to NK Cheating Story. We truly appreciate every single one of you. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment and let us know. Now, let's dive into today's story. My name is Daniel Rivers. I was the kind of husband who never missed an anniversary, who worked late so she wouldn't have to, who believed that loyalty still meant something. For 20 years, I thought we had a marriage worth saving, until I discovered the truth. She thought I didn't know. She thought I was too blind, too soft, too trusting. But what she didn't realize was that I wasn't preparing to beg for her love. I was preparing for war. And when I struck back, I didn't just leave her. I erased the life she thought she'd steal from me. I woke up that morning with a dull ache behind my eyes and a heaviness in my chest I couldn't quite explain. The house was silent, save for the humming of the ceiling fan above our bed. Rachel lay beside me, her back turned, her breathing soft and even. I stared at the ceiling, trying to summon the will to get up and face another day of pretending we still had something worth saving. From the outside looking in, we were the picture of success. Married 20 years, a beautiful two-story home in a quiet neighborhood, matching cars, vacations twice a year. I made good money, worked hard, and kept my promises. But behind closed doors, we were hollow. We hadn't made love in weeks. Her eyes no longer lit up when I walked into a room, and when I touched her, she flinched like I was a stranger. I used to think this was just a phase, that every long marriage went through these cold seasons. But that illusion shattered when I started noticing the late-night texts, the sudden bursts of laughter at nothing, the way she guarded her phone like it was her lifeline. And then there was the cologne. It wasn't mine. The first time I smelled it on her clothes, I let it go. Told myself maybe it was from a department store or a hug from a friend. But when it happened again and again, I stopped making excuses. I wasn't a fool. I just didn't want to believe what was right in front of me. So I stayed quiet. I pretended not to notice how distant she had become. I pretended not to hear her whispering in the bathroom with the door locked. I smiled through dinners where her fork barely touched the plate, and her phone buzzed endlessly beside her. I watched her laugh at texts she refused to show me, and I swallowed the pain every damn day. The irony was, I could have confronted her. I could have kicked her out, hired a lawyer, made a scene. But that's not who I am. I don't do loud. I don't do rage. I plan. I wait. I observe. And while she thought I was just some emotionally stunted workaholic too dull to notice her games, I was building something she'd never see coming. She used to tell me that passion was everything, that in our early days, we had fire. And we did. But fire burns out fast when only one person's tending the flame. Enter Chase. I didn't know his name at first. Just a vague sense of someone younger, someone hungrier. But I'd seen the way she smiled while texting, the way she rushed to shower before errands, the way she dressed up on days when she supposedly had no one to see. One night, I followed her. I sat in my car a block away from the bar and watched her walk in. She didn't even look back. That was the moment something inside me snapped, but not in the way you'd think. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even go in there to confront her. No. I just sat there in silence, heart pounding in my ears, watching the woman I once loved disappear into the arms of another man. That night, I went home alone, and I made a decision. I would not let her humiliate me. She thought she was in control, that she'd string me along until she drained me dry, then file for divorce and walk away with everything. I could see the plan forming behind her eyes, cold, calculated, confident. But if there's one thing Rachel never understood about me, it's that still waters run deep. I don't speak unless I have something to say. I don't fight unless I know I'll win. And when I choose to act, it's not out of anger. It's surgical. In the weeks that followed, I began preparing. Quietly, methodically. I met with a lawyer. I started shifting accounts. I researched property laws. I documented everything. Photos, texts, timestamps. I played dumb at home, even as I watched her lie to my face with a smile. She thought I didn't know. She thought I was weak. But what she didn't realize, what she still doesn't know, is that the moment she chose him over me, I stopped being her husband and started becoming her reckoning. The days that followed were quiet, too quiet. Rachel didn't suspect a thing. She still kissed me on the cheek when she left the house, still called me honey in that practiced, almost patronizing tone. I played my part, smiled, nodded, made her coffee every morning like clockwork. But behind my smile, gears were turning. Something was off. Not just her behavior, mine too. I started to feel something I hadn't in years. Clarity. I began to observe her with cold detachment, like a scientist watching a subject under glass. I kept track of her appointments, the so-called girls' nights, and the sudden gym obsession that came out of nowhere. She hadn't been to a gym in over 5 years, but now she was there 3 times a week, coming home glowing and exhausted. Please. One morning while she showered, I noticed her phone left unattended on the nightstand. That never happened. Her screen was locked, of course, but the notifications told me enough. Chase had texted 3 times in 10 minutes. The preview was short. Can't stop thinking about last night. You taste like heaven. When can I see you again? I clenched my jaw, stared at the screen, and for a moment, I considered unlocking it. But I didn't need more proof. I already had enough. This wasn't about catching her. This was about watching her hang herself with the rope she didn't know I'd given her. Then, something curious happened. I noticed she was watching me too, sneaking glances when she thought I wasn't looking. I'd catch her eyes on me, narrowing in suspicion, as if she sensed a shift in the air. But she said nothing. I played dumb, just like always. But even I was surprised when I caught her snooping through my closet one afternoon. She was in there for a good 10 minutes. When I walked in unexpectedly, she jumped like she'd seen a ghost. I was just looking for that green jacket, she said quickly, smiling too wide. You know the one you wear when we go hiking? We hadn't gone hiking in 2 years. Must have donated it. I replied smoothly, walking past her, acting like I didn't see the panic in her eyes. She was looking for signs. She felt something in her gut, and she was right to be afraid. A few days later, while cleaning the kitchen, I found a red circle on the wall calendar, next Saturday. Strange, because we never planned anything in advance anymore. But this date was bold, underlined in red ink. The 5 days leading up to it were marked with little stars. I didn't ask about it. Instead, I checked my sock drawer that night. She'd forgotten to close it all the way. Tucked beneath a pile of old birthday cards and cufflinks I hadn't worn in a decade was a glossy brochure, sleek, expensive, the kind you don't find at a regular travel agency. It was from a private spa resort in Las Vegas. But the cover didn't hide what it really was, a high-end brothel. The kind of place where fantasies come with room service. The women on the cover were young, flawless, practically oozing temptation. And right there, scribbled in blue ink across the front, Chase's treat. So that was the plan. She was going to Vegas with him. On my dime. Probably using the credit card I gave her just for emergencies. I felt a chill creep up my spine. Not from anger, but from the realization that she had no idea just how far ahead I was. She thought I was some aging fool, too tired and passive to notice her scheme. She had no idea I already had a new account opened under a different name, that I'd pulled half our liquid assets and moved them into protected holdings. No idea that I had already contacted a realtor about selling the house. No idea I had a storage unit halfway across town filled with documents, backups, even hidden cameras I'd placed around the home over the past month. She was playing checkers. I was playing chess. That night, she crawled into bed and made a half-hearted attempt at intimacy, one that hadn't happened in weeks. She pressed her body against mine, her fingers trailing down my chest, voice soft, sugary. I turned to her and smiled. Not tonight, Ratch. I'm wiped. She stiffened. It was the first time I had rejected her. She muttered something about work stress and rolled away, her back to me once again. But I didn't sleep that night. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, a faint smile on my lips. I could feel the storm gathering, and I welcomed it. She thought she was in control, but I had already set the board. And come Saturday, when that red circle hit the calendar, she wouldn't know what hit her. The moment I found that brochure, everything clicked into place. The trip, the calendar, the fake gym nights. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was planning an escape. And not just any escape. She was going to run off with Chase, cash in on a fat divorce settlement, and start over with everything I'd worked for. That's when I decided to go nuclear. I'd always known she had a flair for theatrics. Rachel was never one to do things quietly. So, I figured if she wanted a performance, I'd give her one. I would let her believe she was winning, right up until the curtain dropped. I called my lawyer the next morning. Real sharp guy. Name's Kent Harmon. Wore suspenders like it was still the 80s, but he had the bite of a pit bull and the ethics of a snake. Perfect. I laid out everything I knew. The affair, the trip to Vegas, the financial discrepancies. He leaned back in his chair, tapped his pen against his lip, and smiled like a man who'd just been handed a loaded deck of cards. "This is going to be fun," he said. In the weeks that followed, I became someone else entirely. I stopped confronting Rachel, stopped reacting. I let her wander in and out of the house like a ghost, coming home at midnight, tipsy, lips freshly glossed. She'd give me some half-baked excuse. Girls' night ran long. They went dancing. She forgot the time. I'd nod, ask if she had fun, and return to reading the paper. Inside, I was counting every second. She started pushing harder, testing my limits, leaving her phone face up, letting Chase's name appear on the screen. Texts like, "Can't wait to feel you again." She wanted me to see it. She was trying to provoke me, maybe to justify leaving sooner, maybe just to feel powerful. I gave her nothing. That's when she escalated. One evening, she came into the kitchen wearing lingerie I hadn't seen in over a decade. The same set she wore on our honeymoon. She pressed herself against me, her voice soft, playful. "You've been so distant lately. I miss you." It was almost insulting. I stared at her, trying not to laugh. This woman had been sneaking off with her boy toy for weeks, maybe months, and now she was trying to seduce me like it was all normal. I leaned in and whispered, "Not tonight." Her face dropped. That rejection, it rattled her. I saw it in her eyes. She wasn't used to losing control. The next day, I found the divorce papers. She had hidden them in her desk drawer, buried beneath spa brochures and makeup receipts. The bold header read, "Petition for dissolution of marriage. Grounds: emotional neglect, irreconcilable differences, mental cruelty." She was painting me as a cold, unfeeling brute. It was genius, in a way. Build a narrative where I was the villain and she was the poor, mistreated wife who just wanted love. But I'd already beat her to it. You see, 2 weeks before, I'd filed a quiet divorce petition under separate legal grounds. I had evidence, dates, photos, recorded conversations. She didn't know it yet, but the law was already on my side. She was stepping into a war zone armed with fairy dust. I'd also made other arrangements. I sold the second house, my grandfather's cabin upstate, and transferred the funds to a holding company in my brother's name. I moved all but a few $1,000s out of our joint checking account. I changed the beneficiary on my life insurance. I even canceled the gym membership she wasn't actually using and replaced the Lexus lease she drove under my name with one I could repossess on demand. Every move she made, I was 10 ahead. I heard her on the phone with her mother one night. "I'm filing soon," she whispered. "He has no idea. Once it's in motion, I'll hit him with everything. He won't see it coming." Her mother, bless her bitter heart, warned her. "Rachel, are you sure about this? Daniel may be quiet, but he's not stupid. He's not the type you can blindside." Rachel laughed. "Please. He still asks me to set the DVR. He's harmless." That same night, she printed a checklist and tucked it in her purse. On it were the words: "Call lawyer. Set court date. Book flights Vegas. Clean out account after filing. Serve Daniel." She planned to serve me the divorce papers the day before her Vegas trip. The day before she'd fly off with Chase to celebrate their freedom on my dollar. Poetic. But here's the thing she never understood. I never needed to scream to win. I just needed patience. And while she was making a list of things to take from me, I was making a list of everything I was about to take from her. Her home. Her pride. Her plan. She wanted war. She was about to get one. And by the time it was over, she'd wish I'd just yelled. It was a Thursday afternoon when she walked into my office. Red hair, confident stride, green eyes that scanned every corner of the room like she owned it. She didn't wait for an invitation to sit. Just dropped into the chair across from my desk, crossed her legs, and stared straight through me like she was peeling away layers I didn't even know I had. "You're Daniel Rivers," she said. "And you are?" She tilted her head. "Samantha. Samantha Brooks." The name didn't ring a bell. "I don't do walk-ins," I said flatly, my patience thin. I was neck-deep in fake budgets, closed bank accounts, and legal documents disguised as gardening catalogs. The last thing I needed was a mystery woman barging into my world. "I'm not here for business," she replied coolly. "I'm here because your wife is cheating on you. With my boyfriend." That got my attention. I didn't flinch, didn't blink, but my heartbeat stuttered. I leaned back slowly, eyeing her. "Chase," she said, watching for my reaction. There it was. The name. The face I'd never seen, but knew existed. It all came into focus. Samantha dropped a manila folder onto my desk. "Proof," she said. "Photos. Texts. Audio recordings. I didn't reach for it. Not yet. How long? I asked. She shrugged. 6 months that I know of. Maybe longer. He was seeing her while still sleeping in my bed. That's the kind of guy Chase is. He plays poor, acts helpless, and lets older women bankroll his life. I was his landlord, therapist, and sugar mama rolled into one. And now, surprise, your wife's his new investment. I exhaled, rubbing the space between my eyes. Why come to me now? Samantha smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Because you deserve to know. And because I've got nothing left to lose. He cleaned me out, emotionally and financially. But I'm not going to let him or your wife walk away unscathed. I finally opened the folder. There they were, Rachel and Chase. In his car. In our neighborhood. At a cheap motel 2 towns over. Her lips on his neck. His hands up her dress. There was a timestamp. Last Thursday. The night she claimed she was visiting her sick cousin. My hand curled into a fist, but I kept my voice calm. What's your angle in all this? I'm not asking for anything, Samantha said. Not money, not help. Just revenge. And maybe something else. What's that? She stood, walked to the window, then turned and looked at me. Really looked at me. Peace, she said. For both of us. We sat in silence for a long moment. I didn't trust people easily, but there was something in her voice, a bitterness that mirrored my own, a fury just barely restrained. She wasn't bluffing. All right, I said. Let's burn them to the ground. That night, we had dinner. Nothing fancy. Just Chinese takeout in my living room while we reviewed everything she'd compiled. Samantha had been thorough. She had months of text messages, call logs, voicemails, even a recorded conversation between Chase and Rachel, laughing about me, about how clueless I was. That laughter stayed with me. It echoed in my head long after she'd gone home. By the end of the week, Samantha had introduced me to her private investigator, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Sarah Price. Sarah had experience in these kinds of cases. She'd dealt with enough cheating spouses to know how the game was played. She confirmed what Samantha and I both suspected. Chase wasn't just a fling for Rachel. He was her way out. Her endgame. Their Vegas trip wasn't a secret getaway. It was a celebration of my downfall. But here's what they didn't know. I wasn't just playing defense anymore. Samantha and I started seeing each other more often. At first, it was strategy sessions, meetings in cafes, parking lot handoffs, burner phones. But slowly, things shifted. Her texts got warmer. Her touch lingered a little longer. And when she smiled, it didn't feel like a weapon anymore. It felt like something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. One night, after a long planning session, she looked at me and said, "You deserve better, Daniel. A lot better." I wanted to believe her. We were sitting in my car, parked outside her apartment. The windows fogged up from the rain. She leaned in, kissed me, softly at first, then with a hunger I hadn't tasted in years. It was different from Rachel. There was no performance, no manipulation, just raw, simple desire. I kissed her back. And just like that, everything changed. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my life. They betrayed us, lied, manipulated, humiliated. But Samantha and I, we were about to write a different ending. Not just a counterattack, a reckoning. And it had only just begun. There was something intoxicating about plotting revenge with a woman who looked like she'd walked out of a dream and talked like she'd walked through hell. Samantha wasn't just beautiful. She was dangerous in the best way. Sharp, calculated. But underneath all that fire was someone who'd been broken just like me. Someone who didn't want pity, just justice. Our secret alliance grew tighter. We began moving like shadows, always a few steps behind our unsuspecting partners, until we weren't behind them anymore. We were circling. I started parking my car 2 blocks from Samantha's apartment. We used prepaid phones, communicated through burner apps, met in low-key diners, always careful, always quiet. To everyone else, I was still the dull, clueless husband, and she was the heartbroken ex. That illusion kept us safe and gave us cover. But pretending not to exist in someone's life only fuels what's bubbling underneath. Our planning sessions turned personal. Somewhere between stolen glances and whispered jokes, I started looking at Samantha differently. Not just as an ally, but as the woman who reminded me what it felt like to be seen, to be heard, to matter. And that scared the hell out of me, because I hadn't felt that way in years. Rachel had made me believe I was nothing more than a paycheck with a heartbeat. I became invisible in my own home. The only time she touched me was when she wanted something. Money, a favor, control. And like a fool, I'd kept giving. But Samantha? She didn't want anything from me. She showed up because she wanted justice. She stayed because she wanted me. One night, we were reviewing surveillance footage Sarah had compiled. Chase and Rachel, again, at that same seedy motel, the one with the flickering sign and the zero shame. I stared at the screen as Rachel laughed, curled into Chase's arms, her hands all over him like a woman possessed. Samantha leaned in beside me, her voice low. Still hurts, doesn't it? I nodded. Not because she cheated, but because I let it get this far. She turned to me, our faces inches apart. You didn't let it happen, Daniel. You endured it. There's a difference. She didn't kiss me right away. She waited, like she wanted permission, not just from me, but from herself. And when she finally leaned in, it wasn't just a kiss. It was a release. For both of us. A breath we hadn't realized we'd been holding. I pulled her closer. Her hands threaded through my hair. For the first time in years, I felt wanted, not out of obligation or manipulation, but genuinely, deeply. I was still a man, still worthy, still alive. We didn't go further that night. The moment was electric, but not rushed. We knew this wasn't about lust. It was about rebuilding something from the ruins we'd both been left in. Later, we sat on her balcony, wine glasses in hand, watching the city lights blink against the sky. Samantha rested her head on my shoulder and whispered, I ended things with Chase. Weeks ago, even before I told you. I turned to her, surprised. Why? She smiled faintly. Because I realized something. Helping you, it meant more to me than hurting him. And I don't want to be tethered to revenge. I want to move forward, with someone who actually sees me. Those words stayed with me for days. Back at home, Rachel was getting bold. Her business trips were longer. Her attitude colder. She was already living like a single woman. Chase even had the audacity to send her flowers, with a card signed C. She didn't even try to hide it. But I didn't care anymore. Because now, I had Samantha. And something else Rachel didn't know. I had everything I needed to crush her little fantasy life. The photos, the recordings, financial records proving she'd siphoned money from our joint account into a hidden one in her name. Sarah's PI team had uncovered it all. I had even transferred the deed to our home into my personal trust weeks ago. Legally, it was no longer marital property. And she had no idea. Samantha and I were careful not to be seen in public together. We told our friends and co-workers that we were just busy with work. And it worked. Rachel and Chase were too wrapped up in their own affair to notice anything beyond themselves. I was no longer the clueless husband. I was the man pulling every string. One afternoon, Samantha looked at me and said, Do you ever wonder if we're just replacing one mess with another? I shook my head. No, because this time it's honest. She touched my hand gently. Then let's make it count. We sealed it with a kiss, one that felt like a promise. The next day, I scheduled my business trip. Rachel practically pushed me out the door, all fake smiles and forced kisses. She thought she was finally free to live her new life with her boy toy. She had no idea that while I packed my bags, I'd also packed up the rest of her world. Because when I left that house, it wasn't a trip. It was a trigger, and the countdown had begun. The morning of my business trip, the house was still. Rachel flitted around the kitchen in her silk robe, humming like a schoolgirl on prom night. She didn't even ask where I was going. Didn't care. She barely looked up from her phone, probably texting Chase. I watched her from across the granite island, sipping my coffee slowly, savoring the moment. She thought this was the day everything started going her way. In reality, it was the day everything started falling apart. My bags were packed neatly by the door, though I wasn't heading to any office or conference. The real destination was already secured. I had signed the paperwork the week before, quietly transferring the house deed into the name of my trust. The bank accounts were empty. The joint investments liquidated. Even my direct deposit had been rerouted to an entirely separate institution Rachel had never heard of. As far as she knew, I was still clueless. Still her little ATM with a wedding band. Still the man she could leave behind and laugh about with her boy toy in Vegas. I kissed her on the cheek before walking out the door. It was the last time I ever touched her. 3 hours later, I was sitting in Samantha's living room, sipping bourbon while we watched the security feed from the front of my, now former, home. The movers I had hired arrived precisely on time. Black trucks. Uniformed crew. No company logos. Just efficient, silent professionals who knew exactly what to do. Rachel must have been mid-makeout session with Chase because there was no movement for the first 10 minutes. Then she opened the door, her robe loosely tied, hair disheveled. Her expression changed instantly. Confusion, annoyance, then dawning horror. I'd have paid good money to see it in person. She stepped outside, hands on her hips, demanding answers. The lead mover handed her a printed document, signed and notarized, confirming the sale of the house and immediate transfer of ownership. The new buyer, a charity foundation, had no interest in keeping any of the furnishings. Everything inside was being donated. And Rachel? She had until sundown to collect her personal belongings and vacate the premises. She didn't take it well. I turned up the volume on the feed just in time to hear her shout, "This house is mine. You can't just throw me out." The crew leader, calm as ever, replied, "Ma'am, your name was never on the deed." She looked like she'd been slapped. She stormed back inside, probably to call her lawyer, or maybe just to scream into a pillow. Chase came stumbling out moments later, shirt half-buttoned, holding a phone and yelling something about calling the cops. I smiled. He did. They showed up 20 minutes later. And guess what? The police chief, Hank Talbot, was an old friend of mine. We played poker every third Saturday. When he showed up and saw the documents, he shook the mover's hand and said, "Carry on, gentlemen." Rachel exploded. "Mark sold the house without telling me," she shrieked. "This is illegal." Hank just smirked. "You're not divorced. Yet. And he owned the property outright. Nothing illegal about it." Then came the best part. They tried to pack up the furniture, the bedroom set, the couches, the designer dining table she was so proud of. Hank stepped in again. "No can do. All assets inside the home are now part of the donation contract. You're allowed 2 suitcases each. Personal items only." The look on Chase's face when he realized his Xbox and sneaker collection were staying behind? Priceless. Samantha sat beside me, laughing softly. "You're really doing it." I already did. But it didn't end there. By the time Rachel made it to the bank to try to salvage our joint accounts, she discovered they had been drained. She called the branch manager, Carly, another old friend, who sweetly explained that the primary account holder, me, had legally withdrawn the funds. Rachel could have a check for the remaining balance, $311. Her scream probably echoed across town. She tried to freeze the investment accounts next, but found only 1 share left in a cheese company. The rest? Cashed out weeks ago. She called her lawyer next. Too late. My petition for divorce had already been filed. Irrefutable evidence of infidelity was attached: photos, texts, dates, financial documents. It was clean, brutal, unapologetic, just like she had planned for me. Except now, she was the one standing in an empty house, with a clueless boy toy, no assets, no lawyer, and no plan. The final blow came when she returned to the bedroom to pack and found a single envelope on the dresser. Inside was a copy of her Vegas itinerary and a note in my handwriting. "You wanted freedom. Now you have it. No strings. No money. No home. You should have chosen honesty over arrogance. Tell Chase I hope he enjoys paying rent. D." She tried calling me that night. 6 times. I didn't answer. She didn't know it yet, but I had already changed my number, my email, my entire life. Because when I walked out of that house, I didn't just leave her behind. I buried her. 3 years. That's how long it had been since I walked out of that house and into a new life. Without Rachel, without the lies, without the weight of pretending I was okay. 3 years since I burned it all down. And not once had I looked back. I changed everything. My phone number, my address, my accounts, even my last name on non-legal documents. I cut off every shared thread we ever had. Rachel had no way to reach me, and from what I'd heard through mutual acquaintances, she had tried. Desperately. At first, she went ballistic, called banks, threatened attorneys, tried to claw back anything she could. But the papers were airtight. The evidence indisputable. Her infidelity, the financial betrayal, the premeditated plan to leave me for Chase while gutting me in court. It all worked in my favor. She walked away with nothing. Not the house. Not the cars. Not a cent. Then, she disappeared. Rumor had it, she moved back in with her mother. Chase didn't last long. Apparently, the financial burden of actual adulthood wasn't his style. Within a month, he skipped out on rent and moved in with some college girl who didn't know any better. Poetic, really. As for Rachel, life didn't get kinder. Her Lexus got repossessed. She picked up part-time work cleaning hotel rooms. The same woman who once refused to fold laundry was now scrubbing toilets for minimum wage. And me? I was finally free. I spent the first year laying low, handling legal loose ends, working with Samantha to finalize everything. We didn't rush into anything romantic. We didn't have to. We had something far more valuable than passion. We had trust. By the second year, we were living together in a quiet home on the outskirts of town. Nothing extravagant, just peaceful, real. The kind of life I used to dream about when Rachel's voice was drowning out every thought in my head. Samantha brought light back into my world. She didn't demand. She didn't manipulate. She just was. And that was enough. More than enough. The third year was when everything changed again. She got pregnant. I remember that day like it was yesterday, her standing in the doorway, test in hand, tears in her eyes, voice trembling. I didn't think I could after everything. Neither of us said much. We didn't need to. I just held her for a long time. It was the start of something I never thought I'd get again. Family. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't just a husband or a provider or a victim of someone else's games. I was a man who had made it through the fire and come out the other side reborn. Then the invitation arrived. Plain white envelope. No return address. My first instinct was to toss it, but something told me to open it. Inside was a single card, handwritten in delicate cursive. We've come full circle. I'm ready to give you what you wanted. Rachel. It had to be. I stared at the note for a long time, trying to decide how I felt. Was it closure she wanted? A reunion? Regret? Or was this just another trap? One last play to claw her way back into the life she helped destroy? I showed it to Samantha. She raised an eyebrow. She's not over you, she said quietly. Doesn't matter, I replied. I'm over her. Still, I was curious. So I went. The cafe was quiet, tucked on the edge of town. I arrived early, took a seat near the window. Samantha and our daughter came with me. She was just shy of 2, red curls, green eyes, and the same little smirk I'd inherited from my father. We looked like a family, because we were. I saw Rachel across the street, stepping out of the bar. She looked different, heavier, tired. Her hair had grown out, streaks of gray at the roots. No makeup, no pretense, just a woman who had been dragged across rock bottom. She spotted me. Her expression twisted, not into anger, not even into sadness, but something closer to disbelief. Like she hadn't truly believed I could go on without her, that I could thrive. She didn't come to the cafe. Instead, a woman in a navy blazer approached. Younger, professional. She looked me straight in the eye and said, "Are you Daniel Rivers?" I nodded. "You've been served," she said, handing me a small stack of papers. Rachel's divorce countersuit. Too late. I glanced through the documents. Her claims were laughable: emotional abandonment, coercion, financial deception. It didn't matter. The original divorce had been finalized 2 years ago. She was either delusional, desperate, or both. Across the street, she stood frozen, watching me. Watching us. She saw Samantha approach. Saw the way I touched her back. The way our daughter clutched my finger. And something in Rachel's face cracked. She knew. It was over. She wasn't just a woman who lost her marriage. She was a woman who had gambled everything. And lost to a man she thought would never fight back. She didn't cross the street. She just stood there, clutching her purse like it was the last piece of dignity she had left. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. For a moment, our eyes met through the cafe window, and I saw it. That flicker of something raw, something she probably hadn't let herself feel in years. Regret. But regret doesn't pay back betrayal. I turned away and refocused on the 2 people who actually mattered now, Samantha and our daughter. My little girl giggled as she pressed her face against the glass, drawing cloudy circles with her tiny fingers. Samantha slid into the booth beside me, brushing a kiss against my cheek like it was the most natural thing in the world. Rachel watched it all. She saw the life that could have been hers if she hadn't set it on fire. A waitress arrived, placing a slice of apple pie in front of my daughter and pouring Samantha another cup of coffee. I thanked her and glanced out the window again. Rachel was gone. Vanished back into the world she'd created for herself, a world built on secrets, manipulation, and short-term thrills. A world where love was transactional and loyalty was just a word people threw around when they needed something. That wasn't my world anymore. That night, After we put the baby to bed, I stepped out onto the back porch with a glass of bourbon and the divorce papers Rachel had tried to serve me. I set them on the patio table beside me, unread, untouched, and pulled out my phone. There was one voicemail from an unknown number. I knew it was her. I played it on speaker. Her voice was shaky, barely above a whisper. "Daniel, I saw you. At the cafe. You looked happy. Really happy. I didn't think. I guess I never thought you'd be the one who moved on first. I was wrong. About everything. About you. About Chase. About what I thought I wanted." There was a pause. I could hear her crying softly on the other end. "I thought you'd always be there waiting. That no matter how far I pushed you, you'd still be Daniel. Reliable, loyal, safe. But you're not that man anymore. I see that now. And I'm sorry. I really am." Another pause. "Just, please tell me, was any of it real? Did you ever really love me? Or was I just someone you tolerated?" The message ended in static. I stared at the phone for a while, the glass growing warm in my hand. Her question hung in the air like fog. Was it real? Yes, it was. I did love her. Fiercely, naively, stupidly. I loved her when she was laughing barefoot in our kitchen at midnight. I loved her when we were broke and hopeful, living on takeout and dreams. I loved her even when she started pulling away, long before she ever touched Chase. But the thing about love is, it needs to be fed, protected, respected, and she killed it. Slowly, methodically. I took one last look at the papers beside me. Then, without a word, I reached for the lighter in my pocket, struck the flame, and set the documents ablaze. The fire caught quickly, curling the edges, blackening the lies, reducing her final act of desperation to ash. Samantha stepped onto the porch, wrapping her arms around me from behind. "She called, didn't she?" I nodded. "She'll always be chasing what she destroyed," she said softly. "But you? You built something better." I looked back at her, my anchor, my redemption, my second chance. She was right. I had taken pain and turned it into power. I had taken betrayal and turned it into freedom. And now, I had something Rachel could never fabricate: peace. We sat in silence, watching the flames die out. My daughter stirred inside, letting out a sleepy babble from her crib. The kind of sound that grounds you, reminds you of what matters. I smiled. The past had finally burned away, and in its place stood a man no longer defined by what was done to him, but by what he chose to do next. I didn't need revenge anymore. I already had everything: closure, love, and my life, rebuilt from the ashes she left behind. Looking back on it all now, I realized that what happened to me wasn't just a tragedy. It was a lesson carved deep into my soul. I learned that silence doesn't mean weakness, and kindness should never be mistaken for blindness. Sometimes, the most dangerous man in the room is the one who says nothing, who waits, who watches. To anyone listening, especially those of us who've walked through decades of life, don't ignore the quiet erosion of your spirit. If someone disrespects your loyalty, don't keep giving pieces of yourself away, hoping they'll notice. They won't. Love is not control. Love is not manipulation. And love is never supposed to feel like servitude. If I could go back, I'd tell myself this: you matter too. Your peace, your heart, your dreams, they're worth fighting for. Even if it means walking away from what you once thought was your forever. And if life hands you betrayal, don't waste yourself on vengeance. Outgrow it. Rebuild. Find peace, not in punishing them, but in freeing yourself. That's the greatest revenge of all: living well and never looking back.